What's going on with this Spottic? Bring you guys another gameplay commentary. This is Black Desert Online, and I know I haven't done a commentary in about a month. I have lots of clips, but it's just I don't know. I haven't felt the need to upload commentary. I really haven't had any particular topics that interested me or that interests me. So I've not really put out um, any commentaries. What I have been doing is random streams, and uh, it's random. Don't take anything from that. Whenever I decide to stream, I stream. Whenever it can be 2 in the morning, it can be 4 in the morning, it can be 12 noon, it can be 4 o'clock. Just a bunch of things, right? And this video, I don't think I mentioned what this video is about, but this video, I'm rambling on and on again. I tend to go off on these tangents. But this video pertains to weaknesses that Sorceress, that a Sorc has, right? I play Awakened Sorc, so I can only speak to Awakened Sorc, but I can somewhat mention Succession Sorc when it comes to PvP because I fight a lot of them. Recently, I've been fighting a lot of Succession Sorcs, some really solid geared Succession Sorcs. They were originally Awakened Sorcs. And so let's get to some of the weaknesses, right? So most people, when they think of a Sorceress, an Awakened Sorc, they think iframe, right? They immediately go and start thinking that, they will become the most untouchable player in the game, right? So Nightcrow, this is the skill that has 0 cooldown, right? There's no cooldown associated with this skill, but there is a 250 stamina penalty. Some players will say, even with that, you have ways to kind of mitigate that, right? And here's the way you can do that, right? So crow food, you use shards to use storm and crow, but it's no longer an iframe. It's a super armor, right? It's still protected, but if you're a Sorc, you'd already know we're very squishy and we run into a lot of trouble, right? So this is what a lot of players think of. I'm just pointing out some of the, what players think of Sorcs. Then we have Grim, right? This is unprotected after you release, but because we're in Awakened, and the reason they created these core skills is because they felt as if this is in the past, they felt as if Succession was a bit ahead of Awakened specs. And so they went ahead and added core skills. So if you choose Grim as a core, you add full protection. It now becomes super armor when you release it. Right? No respectable Sorc would use anything else. Right? Turnback slash is a catch skill. It has really good range, so there's no reason for you to use that. Dead Hunt, forward guard. I don't know what use you would use for that. Violation, PvE maybe. And Swirling Darkness. Probably this is the only skill because it's SA and it would offer floating. But there are other skills that you can use as a Sorc to get the same effect, right? You have absolute shadow kick, right? You have and I mean it's not protected, but right, you have absolute shadow eruption. So this is the only protected CC that we have on on pre-awakened. The other protected CC is Grim. And it's not a fully protected CC, right? As I mentioned, without the core version, once you release the skill, it's unprotected. Soul Reaper is not Soul Reaper is not a CC, even though it's super armor. It's CC in PvE. Swirling is protected, but it's not a crowd control unless you add the core version to it, right? So again, you hear this whole notion that what I call it talking points. I'm no politician, but you hear this notion that Sorcs have so much protection and they can SA trade you and they can iframe in perpetuity. Those things are not true, right? They're not true. On awakened, on pre-awakened, you have one protected CC, and that is Shadow Eruption. Prior to the rework, this was not a protected skill. Okay, so that's one protected skill on pre-awaken. And just remember, Sorc is not a class where you can fully just play in awaken. You just can't do that. You have a lot of your utility on pre-awakened, and then a lot of your damage. I say a lot. I say a lot. Your only damage dealing skill on this bar is Grim, right? You hear some players say you hear some of them say stuff like Carson's Nightmare does crazy amount of damage. No, it does not, right? And even if it does, I'm speaking, you'll notice I'll speak interchangeably about 1v1 and large scale. In a 1v1, you have too many other skills at your disposal to do this. I found when I initially started playing Awakened Sorc, I would use this as a final kill because I didn't know how to fully combo with a Sorc, right? Sorc's combo system is dynamic, meaning you're using a lot of the skills that you would use to do damage also in your combos, right? And you have to just figure out, okay, if this skill is on cooldown, right? If I've used this skill already, there's another skill I have to use, right? So all in all, I don't think Sorc has been buffed under rework, right? Two things have changed. If you used, and some players might say that's a buff, but I don't think it's a buff. But so when you're using Nightcrow, there's no cooldown. But if you use Nightcrow on Scythe stance, when you have your Scythe out, it used to be 2 seconds, but now it's 1 second. And that goes in line with what ninjas have, right? So a ninja has a side to side movement iframe. That's 1 second, right? So we have Nightcrow, and I forgot to mention we also have Shadow Leap, right? The initial startup of Shadow Leap is unprotected, and it has a 5-second cooldown, and we don't regen stam on this. This was the nerf that they did to Sorcs, right? In the past, you'll see Sorcs. Sometimes you'll see Sorcs. You're wondering, why is this Sorc using Grim into this skill? If you notice, there's no stam associated with that. So mostly Sorcs would use that to regen stam. And we would be able to Shadow Leap and regen our stam at that time, but that no longer works, right? If you're Sorc and you go into Shadow Leap, the stamina does not regen while you're in Shadow Leap. That was a nerf, right? So, and you still hear players say, "Oh, Sork is overpowered. All they do is iframe." The only thing that changed that made Sorks more viable is the fact that damage increase. And if you have a class that's able to mitigate damage by not taking damage in the form of an iframe or in a form that allows them to kite you better, then what you've essentially done is you've enhanced their ability to kill players. Because if damage is high and a player who was originally tanky prior to the damage getting high and relies on super armor often, right? Like a lot of mystics and strikers and warriors and falcons and zerkers. If they rely on those types of things, then if you increase damage but did not do anything to mitigate through super armor, then they've taken a hit to their defense. Versus a class, regardless if the damage is 5 or 10, they would still die. But now with the ability to mitigate damage because they have iframes and ways to kite, right? You can have like infinite frontals, right? And frontals in some ways can mitigate damage to a certain extent where you can just kind of rotate iframes into frontals, into super armors. You have a level of survivability that other players just don't have, right? And that's the reason why I think Sorks, DKs, classes that are a bit more, uh, they're better at just staying away from taking damage. I think they will do better in a high damage meta versus classes that are really good at staying in full SA and the damage is low. They're able to mitigate that damage and still kill you because you're squishy anyway. You would die where damage was 2 versus damage being 10. That's just the nature of like a glass cannon class. And Sork, in some respects, I mean, essentially it is a glass cannon class, but it just doesn't have the type of um, damage that other classes can put out. Suck, Succession, Drake, um, DK, Awakened, Succession. When Sage was really good, Awakened Sage, right? Even Awakened Drakina is pretty solid. Succession, Ranger, Archer, Wizard, Suck Witch. Uh, we just don't have that ability to like one skill players. And the skill that really allows us to do a lot of damage is Grim. And once that skill is not available, we don't have the ability to land damage. Right? The other thing is a majority of our skills are majority. It is a majority, right? I don't know this percentage. I can probably do it. If we had 10 skills and of those 10 skills, one of those skills are is protected, right? Um uh like absolute shadow eruption, then 90% of our skills are unprotected, right? And this might not necessarily be an exaggeration. So this is the only protected skill we have in our kit for pre-awaken. This skill alone, right? If you look at our bombs, uh, this is unprotected. Again, unprotected. This is SA, but it doesn't have a CC. This one has a CC, but it's a frontal guard. Most Sorcs use this now, right? So we just don't have the ability uh, to like maintain consistent one-shot damage. We just don't have that. The other thing is um, we just don't have the ability to SA trade as well. I hear a lot of players say Sork's SA trade and you just might not have the damage. I'm one of the highest damaging Sorks on console, right? I've tried a myriad of builds. I've tried evasion. I've tried, more of an accuracy setup here. If you look at my stats, what am I missing here? Let me just put on. I'm 907 accuracy, and I'm at 318 awaken and 372 DP, right? I'm C15 and where it matters, right? I'm C15 all over. Why did I take why did I take that off? Right? So right, and I'm Trifallen God. So I've done all of this, and what I've realized is no amount of accuracy will get you to that sweet spot, right? I've fought players with this kind of setup where I can't one shot them, right? I have Elcars and Corrupted, and I'm going human damage, and I have Vipers, and uh, you know, have a. I also have um, Garmoth, where I get an additional, attack damage for human damage and as well as accuracy. I have all of these things, and I still run into issues with players, mainly strikers and mystics. I can kill probably 90% of the mystics and 90% of the strikers, but I'm not at that place where I'm concerned about the 90%. I'm more concerned about the 10%, right? Those are the players I am fighting against, right? Those are the players that, I am concerned about. The players who are similarly geared as I am, and, you know, uh, like that's what I'm looking at. Like those are the types of players I'm looking at, right? I also have the more damage setup where I'm at a decent place where, you know, and this is what I've been using because I think this is better. The 323 and 893 or some odd accuracy is better than 316 or 318 AP and 907 accuracy, right? So, and I'm still having difficulties killing players, and I use um, the 10%. And it's not because of a lack of not being able to see them. It's not because of not being able to land a full combo, right? I use the most efficient combo in this game, right? Shadow Eruption, right? I get my accuracy buff there, and then do a knockdown, turn back slash, which reduces their evasion by 13%, right? If you take a look, you'll see my bombs. I'm sorry, my add-ons, right? Midnight Stinger gives me 3% accuracy for 7 seconds. Turn back slash has a 9% reduction. If you take a look, it has a 9% reduction for all evasion, right? And then I've added another 4%, right? So that's 13% reduction. Then I'm now going, because of my the CC limit is over, right? And now I'm going into the part where I'm trying to abuse down smash, smashes because we no longer get 100% down smash with Cry of Darkness. This used to be 100%, but down smashes have a 30% chance to land. And so I'm stacking this. So I'm essentially making a 45% chance on every hit. So I'm using the most optimal combo that I find, right? I'm using the most optimal, right, to get these down smashes and to extend them. These are the types of things I have to do to kind of kill these players. And then you can get them to maybe a third of their health. So what I usually try to do is chip damage and then go from there. But again, these are some of the weaknesses of a Sorc, right? We're magic damage because and so we do run into these issues, and a lot of our attacks have multiple hits. I'm not really a fan of these multiple hits because what happens with multiple hits? If you're an evasion class, you have multiple ways or chances to dodge them, right? I would rather a skill have 2 or 3 attacks, right, when you're launching it, and so it gives the player less chances to dodge them, right? So, and I think it's somewhat gimmicky that what they do is they had to add additional hits, thinking, well, if you have additional hits, it will, you have more chances to land. But to me, it's more chances to miss, right? And I'm speaking, mainly about that 10%. The other 90%, I know some players are looking at this, and I completely agree with you, right? Why are you focused on that 10%? And I'm like, I fit into that 10%, even maybe the 5%, right? And so that's where I'm thinking about. I'm not thinking about the player that, doesn't know anything about CC mechanics, the player who is not, fully invested in what crystal they should use, what add-on is most optimal. Like those players I'm not really concerned about because to me, I don't think it's not fun to me, right? There's no challenge when it comes to that. And so these are the issues that you have as a Sorc. And this, what I just mentioned is it's exacerbated in open world, right? Because again, you're squishy and a lot of your skills are stationary. So if you're using Grim, you realize it's a stationary skill. If you're using Karshan's Nightmare, it's a stationary skill. You're using Swirling, it's a stationary skill. Soul Harvest, Soul Reaper is a stationary skill. And the moment, especially if they're good players or players who just like lay back and have like these more frontier classes engage, because Sorcs, they're very versatile, right? They can function a little bit in the front line. They can be backline players as well, but I mainly think they're most efficient in midline, but they can function in a variety of places, right? So we suffer from stamina issues. We suffer from the fact that if we don't have enough AP, we're not killing anything, right? And I'm not on PC, I'm on console. But from what I've seen, it's very difficult for a Sorc to do well in AOS, Arena of Solaire, and compared to like other classes. And yes, players will say, like different classes do different things, but I just think as a whole, we run into a lot of issues because we because we have this, right? Now, if it were me, I have no issues with you making this an SA, a super armor. I would be perfectly fine with this being super armor. I don't have any issues with it. Zero issues. Make this super armor, right? and remove the fact that we're magic. Give us, take away the magic aspect to it, right? Just remove that. Remove the multiple hits, right? Make it 2 hits and just increase the damage. If the player, you know, if the player dodges both, I'm fine with it, right? But I know if the moment that player takes that hit, they're taking a massive amount of damage, right? And I'm fine if you don't want to make Grim uh, Grim Reaper a core skill. I have zero issues with it. That will just allow me to. I would have to be a bit more, careful with how, I do things when it comes to Grim. And Sorks are that way anyway. I don't know any Sork that just randomly, unless they're trying to regen Stam. I mentioned that earlier. That's just will launch Grim knowing that it's unprotected. We had to deal with this prior to the core skill being introduced. So I don't see any Sork having an issue with this. Is it convenient? Absolutely. But, also, in Scythe training, I would prefer to remove the float. Don't add the float, add a down smash, right? Add a down smash to, because oftentimes I find myself, I use this cancel right here. Give us a down smash so we can, keep a player indefinitely, we can extend them. And I think if you added this as a down smash for us, right? So if we stun the player and we do this, make this a down smash. Do not make it a float. And then there's where I think, I think we'll be fine. Yeah, so these are some, this video originally was supposed to be about the weaknesses that Sorks have, but I guess it went into other things. But yeah, before you want to jump and play this class, like there's some glaring issues that this class has, and you just have to take those things into consideration. Can a Sork play and play super passive and not die? Absolutely. Will that Sork be able to kill effectively and efficiently? Absolutely not. Right? I fought so many Sorks in like 1v1s, and a majority of them are very passive. Right? They never engage. You spend your time chasing them. And I think this is where a lot of Sorks get a bad rap. Because, I find myself chasing players. Because I tend to play aggressive. And I know the better Sorks tend to play aggressive as well. That isn't to say you don't have Sorks who are passive that are really good. Right? I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying on average, the ones I run into, and again, these are opinions. They're not representative of the whole, right? I'm one person giving an opinion on a class that I made. So, so a Sork can do a lot of things and absolutely do nothing, right? I can kite and never engage and I won't die, right? But if I decide to engage and I don't pick, what I need to do, then that's a problem, right? Another thing is, as a Sork, you need to know all of the matchups, right? If you're fighting a Kuno, look at the animation when they put their hands together, especially Succession Kuno, Tendon Cutter is coming. If you're fighting a Assassin, you want to always be to the left or right of them because they have block jumps. If it's a Succession Assassin, they have a range CC. If you're fighting a warrior and they're super aggressive against you, the fight is not going in your favor, right? You have Valks and the random class, Suck Nova, and these shield classes that have 360 block with SA, you can't open them up even with the kind of damage I have, right? So you have a lot of things where, you're fighting an uphill battle. Do you do well against most classes? Yes. Do you have to work harder than most classes? Absolutely, right? So yeah, that's my whole setup about Sorcs. If you're choosing to play this class, just be warned that it comes with a lot of issues, and this class is a class that you have to play and eventually get better at the the subtle kind of things that other players do compared to what you do, and pick your play style, uh, try to anticipate, uh, and you just need to have a decent grasp of what other classes are doing to be good at this class. Not to mention is it's not easy on your fingers. I play claw, which makes it a lot easier to play. Any sorc, well, most sorcs I know play claw. If you don't know what claw is, just look it up. It's from a first-person shooter kind of thing where players are using that uh, to drop shot and jump shot. So anyway, I'm out.